Hey, my name is Maxim. I'm 31 years old. I'm from Heidelberg, and I've been an entrepreneur for 7 years now. So here's my story. I was born in Uzbekistan in a small village called Bustan, with about 200 inhabitants. I grew up in very poor conditions as a child and started working with my parents on the cotton fields at the age of 3 to 5, so that we could have enough money to make it through the week. At the age of 7, we moved to Germany. But in Russia, at that time, the former USSR, I completed my first class. There I learned what respect really means in a different way. And so I moved to Germany in '95, and I had to take the first class again because I didn't know the language. I learned a lot in a very short amount of time, and to really put that into practice. At 14, I realized that the classical way of school, training, studying, whatever, was not the right way. I always felt uncomfortable, even though I always had good grades. Those were just numbers for me at that time. I had a much greater vision, much greater ambition to do something different, to have something of my own. And little by little, the whole thing has formed, and it started with non-verbal communication, where I sat at the train station in the way many people do, watching people and see how they react, interact with each other. And that's where the topic of people fascinated me so much. My parents, of course, they helped so much with all that stuff. Of course, they also used to keep the classical way in mind, that I should study, always do something special. Like doctor or maybe lawyer was also in conversation at times and so on. Because I could always talk well, but even then, I was never satisfied, and actually there were always arguments. But in a way that I knew my parents always stood behind me, and I had the ambition to give them back a lot. Not only just to look for a good job, but actually to assert my own mind and to enjoy life as I would like it to be, but also to give a lot back to my parents, because they just stuck it out anyway, even though there was a lot of stress and anger involved. Today, I actually managed to find this company where I still work and support very strongly, because the human values are also there. This is much more to me than what I had seen in 7 years in the entrepreneurship. That it is not about the money, that it's not about profit or sales growth or whatever. Of course, these are important parts. But for me, the important point became the human aspect. The aspect that one does something good for another person, and that one does something good for oneself automatically, because people always trust or trust more and give back more than one has actually given in retrospect. So I have also learned a lot about if you give to people, then you receive in return. And according to this motto, I am living today. That I really help people and recognize their potential and strengths and continue to promote them. And there I am very secondary about money, about profit and products and whatever. This realization actually comes from high-price sales, where I started working as a freelancer, where I sold high-priced products on the phone, and that produced sums, 6 to 7-digit income variance, which we already actually, or I did, which in retrospect actually made me more unhappy than happy, because I sold things that didn't concern me or didn't make me happy in any way. I didn't even know if that was then really implemented, coachings, whatever. And therefore, for me, there was the ambition to make something of my own, where I also lead people to their potentials, to their strengths in my way, so that they lead a happy and free life for themselves. That is what I stand for with my name. Yes, the most important question is, of course, especially from the experience where I came from, into this industry, how did I come to this company here, to Kyäni? It was complex, but then still relatively simple. I had already been on the road with several companies, which I actually missed there. As I mentioned before, it was always all about profit. That greed had become quite big, that people were being annoyed, that something was sold permanently, really heartless, by a random referrer, my buddy who recommended my sponsor for my own podcast. The conversation totally overwhelmed me, and so I actually got into this conversation. I was actually with another company at that time where I was very, very good. Only at the end of the day, it didn't give me what I really wanted. And so I opened up the conversation again, and so I somehow joined. Within an hour, I decided to just do it. I signed up directly and got to know something completely different. And that's why I'm so happy at Kyäni, because it's about the people. It's about a person himself, and that's just what I very rarely or never saw when working for other companies. It was all about sales, or the events that took place there. It was just permanent sale, sale, sale. There was so little fun for me, because it simply did not pay enough attention to individuality. There was no passion behind it. And that's what I see here quite differently. And I've already mentioned that this is the only company I've ever seen that really cares about this. When you meet the founders the way I did and shake hands, and this person knows you by name from thousands of people, that pays respect. And so it shows me that it's rather focusing on the person, and everything else is secondary. And that makes the whole thing really, really exciting. My name is Maxim, and I live Kyäni.